Snow fell like ash when he found them. The road through the pine pass had been swallowed by drifts, the sky a low bruise, and the wind carried the iron smell of storm and something else. Fear, thin and bright as a wire pulled too tight. Valerius had ridden out alone against counsel, against law, against the old rules that said kings did not go into the dark without a column at their backs. He did not bring a column to mercy, he brought himself, and that had always been trouble. He saw them at the base of a broken mile marker, two shapes pressed together in the snow, as if they could fuse into one body and steal heat from it. Wolf sisters, he thought before their scent reached him, Omega-born, the kind of softness that packs used for mending and singing, the kind they sacrificed when winter demanded coin. They were much too young to have the look of old grief in their mouths, and that angered him more than the cold ever could. He slid from the saddle, boots cutting crescents into the crust, and reached for them through the white. One lifted her head, eyes the palest grey he had ever seen, winter river color, a mouth cracked from cold. She flinched at his shadow, then forced herself not to, brave to the point of ruin. "If you mean us harm," she said, voice barely there, "do it quickly." "If I meant you harm," he answered, letting his voice go softer than it had any right to be, "I would not be kneeling." He shrugged out of his cloak and wrapped them both. First the one who had spoken, then the other who did not stir. The heat of them was so faint, he could have mistaken it for a memory. "Names," he said, because names were doors, and he needed one to bring them through. "Ilyra," said the grey-eyed one, "and Mara." She touched the still girl's cheek with fingers that shook. "My sister." Valerius pressed two fingers beneath Mara's jaw, and found a slow, stubborn beat. It tugged at something in him he did not like to name. "I am Valerius." He did not add the rest. The title had been a curse since the first coronation bell, a collar made of duty and iron and older hungers. In another life he might have told them the whole of it. Last born to no father and too many ghosts, made king because old laws needed a bright blade to hide behind. In this one, in the snow, he was only a man who could lift them and did. He gathered Mara first, light as the word mercy, then offered an arm to Ilyra. She set her jaw and took it, every step a vow. His stallion, night-black and patient as stone, watched them come and did not shy. When Valerius hoisted both girls over the saddle, one before the other, their faces pressed to the horse's warmth like children at a hearth, the ride back to the high fortress took the rest of the failing light. Pines leaned close, the sky lowered. Once, Ilyra whispered, "You smell like thunder." "So I've been told." "Are you?" she began, then swallowed it. "A traveler," he said, and the lie tasted like copper. The fortress rose out of the mountainside, a geometry of black stone and old vows, windows glowing honey against the storm. The sentries saw their king with two near-frozen wolves, and did the clever thing, which was to get out of the way. In the antechamber, the first rush of heat hit them like a hand. Valerius carried Mara past tapestries that told stories of conquest and hunger he would burn if he could, past a table set for a council he had not attended, toward the small side room, where he kept a fire for the nights he still bled. The narrow hearth took quickly, flame caught kindling like a waking eye. He set Mara on the low couch and stripped his cloak away, then the ice-stiff furs around her shoulders, working carefully, reverently, the way he unwrapped relics and battlefield dead. Ilyra stood by, chafing her own arms, trying not to look at his hands. "We were cast out," she said, because silence made cowards and she refused to be one. "For what crime?" "For breathing," she said, with a short, wild laugh that almost broke him. "For having blood soft enough to carry songs instead of war cries. For being last to eat and first to be taken when the moon tithe comes due. For refusing a match that would drown us." "Refusing," he said, and looked up at her properly. She was not beautiful in the way courts meant when they said it. She was beautiful in the way pine trees were, scarred and upright, something that outlasted axes out of stubbornness. "The old Alpha promised us to a man who breaks his cups against girls' teeth," Ilyra said, each word as careful as a stitch. "I told him I would sing for the hunters, and that would be enough. He told me an Omega's mouth is meant for obedience." Valerius felt the old bright cold, the one that had nothing to do with weather. "And your sister?" He said if I would not bend, Mara would do it for both of us. Ilyra's eyes slid to the couch, and the motion gave away what bravery had hidden. She was afraid the warmth would not come back. We ran at moonset. The hunt followed until the storm hid us. By then the world was only white. He crossed the space between them without thinking, and held out his hands. "Give me yours," he said, the way he would to a soldier who had bled too much and didn't know it yet. She did. He rubbed warmth into her fingers with his own, a slow, deliberate friction that felt indecent, only because gentleness so often did. Steam rose from the pot he'd put by the fire. "Soup soon," he said. "Bread, if I can bully the kitchens." "We didn't come to take from kings," she said. "We came to not die." "Then let that be the taking," he said. "Stay alive. Pay me with that." Her mouth trembled and steadied. "Who are you, really?" "Valerius," he said, and decided not to be a liar again. "King by accident and old law, vampire by craft and inheritance. I do not drink from the unwilling. If you need to run, run now." Ilyra stared at him, then at Mara, then at the door where wind still fretted the seam. She did not move toward it. "Do you feed on wolves?" she asked, with something like fascination. "Only when we dance," he said, and that earned her first true smile. Mara stirred. It was small, a lifting of lashes, the barest sound in her throat, but it cracked the invisible shell around the room and poured relief through it. Ilyra dropped to her knees by the couch and pressed her forehead to her sister's shoulder. "I have you," she whispered, over and over, as if repetition could replace lost heat. Mara blinked at the beams, the fire, then at Valerius. Her eyes were a deep brown, almost black, the color of wet soil in spring. "Are we dead?" "Not today," Valerius said. "Hungry?" "Always," Mara said, and the ghost of a grin flickered. "You brought us to a hearth, stranger. You'll have trouble getting rid of us now." "So I've been told," he said, and went to fetch the bread. In the kitchens they looked at his hands and did not ask questions. That was the good thing about ruling long enough. Your people learned which silences were merciful. He returned with a tray that smelled of yeast, and salt and thyme. The sisters ate like those who remembered being denied, careful first, then with a kind of holy greed, Ilyra breaking the bread into halves, then quarters, always giving the better piece to Mara, until Mara caught her wrist and reversed it with a look. The small domesticity of it undid something in him. He had seen cities burn, and armies kneel. He had lowered fanged mouths to throats that begged for salvation, and found nothing in them that felt like redemption. Watching two girls share bread by his fire made him feel, absurdly, like a man. "Tell me what would keep you safe," he said when the first hunger was quieted. "And I will make it law." "Law," Ilyra repeated, surprised into a near laugh. "Law is what threw us to the snow." "Then I'll write new law," he said. "The Moonveil Accords bind crown and pack alike. 2 clauses matter here. Sanctuary is sovereign. No pack may take a soul by force from a king's hearth, and no crown may demand a wolf's vow without her word. Kings can do that, I've been told." Mara's eyes sharpened on him. She had been the quiet one, but quiet did not mean empty. It meant a mind that saved its words for when they would matter most. "He is not just a king," she said softly to her sister, and to him it felt like being seen without armor. "He is the one the old songs call night-crowned. Alpha among vampires, but more than rank, a sacred title given when the Accords were first sworn. The one wolves are warned not to look at in moonlight. And yet," Ilyra said, dangerous humor touching her mouth, "here we are looking." Valerius inclined his head, acknowledging not the title, but the choice they had made to stay despite it. "If the songs were kind," he said, "they would tell you I keep my own records. It is a vanity and a penance." Ilyra's gaze flicked to the small ink line along the side of his thumb. "Calligrapher's mark," he admitted. "You write truth?" Mara asked. "When I can bear it." The storm battered itself out against the stone and lapsed into an uneasy quiet. The fire settled into a low glow. Sleep folded over Mara without asking. She went with it, mouth soft, breath slow. Ilyra remained awake as if by will alone. He saw the tremor return to her hands, and pretended not to. "There will be consequences," she said at last, "for sheltering us." "There always are," he said. "The only question that matters is whether they're worth it. For you, perhaps." For a king, everything can be paid in something other than blood. Not in this house. He leaned back and let the truth sit between them, simple as bread. My reign began with a ledger of bodies. Every law I have changed since then has been written to keep the next page from filling. You are not a line item, Ilyra. Neither is your sister. She breathed out. The exhale sounded like relief but tasted like surrender. The pack will come, she said. They will say we are property. They will say an omega owes the moon, the alpha, the bed. And what do you say? She looked at Mara, at the length of her hair spread over the pillow like spilled ink. She gathered it in a careful hand, and spoke without looking at him. I say nothing owns us. Not the moon, not a man, not a vow made under threat. Our mouths are for singing and our hands for making, and our bodies for ourselves and those we choose. I say we choose. The last 3 words rang in him like bells. Choose. He had been chosen once by a people, because a prophecy said he would keep them fed on the right throats. He had been chosen another time by a girl who loved his kindness more than his crown, and died for it. The idea that he might be chosen this time for something simpler, warmth, safety, the fidelity of bread and letters, made his hands ache. Then I will meet the pack with your words, he said, and my teeth. We cannot pay you with coin, Ilyra said. We can pay you with work. Let us earn our keep until we are brave enough to leave. Or brave enough to stay, he said. Her eyes lifted, startled, then softened, as if she had expected cruelty, and received the opposite. She stood. Her legs wobbled once, twice. Pride steadied what muscles could not. If I sleep now, she said, promise you'll keep the fire fed. I swear it. On what? On the thing I value most. She only nodded and moved to the second couch, pulling the worn wool over her shoulders. The room reshaped itself around their breathing. Valerius kept his promise to the letter. Each time the logs burned down, he rose and fed the hearth. Between these motions he practiced not staring. He failed. He watched them sleep with the sharp attention he reserved for battlefields and treaties, cataloguing the loosened knuckles, the way Ilyra's brow smoothed when Mara's breath deepened, the way Mara's mouth tilted toward a smile as if someone were telling a better story on the other side of sleep, and she wanted to hear the end. Dawn did not come so much as admit defeat. It grayed the windows and painted frost ferns on the glass. Valerius was tending the last of the embers when the door opened without a knock, which meant it was one of his inner circle. Cassian entered like a knife entering a sheath. It looked elegant, but if you were the wrong part of it, you bled. He took in the scene in a single blink. His king, unarmed, 2 wolves, sleeping, a hearth, banked. Your Majesty, Cassian said mildly, the council would like to know why the kitchens are out of bread before sunup. Tell them I was hungry, Valerius said, or tell them the truth. Either will do. Cassian's mouth tilted. Then his expression sharpened. A runner came at moonfall, he said, from the Crescent Pack. They seek 2 runaway omegas. The messenger waits in the great hall, wearing a smile that could salt fields. Ilyra's eyes opened at once. Wolves were trained to wake at the sound of their name, even when their name went unspoken. She sat up slowly so as not to wake Mara and met Cassian's eyes with the flat regard of someone who had already survived the worst kind of greeting. He means us, she said. He means to drag us home. He may mean, Valerius said, rising. But I am interested only in what he can do. What can he do? She asked. Whatever I permit, Valerius said, tasting for the first time that morning the thing he valued most, not power, not victory, the luxury of keeping promises. He crossed to the door, then turned back, half fearing he would find them gone, half fearing they would stay. If I do not return quickly, he said, do not mistake it for defeat. It will only mean I'm being polite longer than I like. Come back, Ilyra said, like an oath. He left instead. The Great Hall was a stone throat built for swallowing armies. The messenger from the Crescent Pack looked small in it, and tried to fill the emptiness with swagger. He wore the Alpha's knotwork at his throat, and a ring that was not his on his finger, and the sight of that ring made something old in Valerius sit up and bare its teeth. Knight-crowned, the messenger said with a bow that was neither deep enough nor wise enough. I bring greetings. And demands, Valerius said, saving him the breath. Return what belongs to us, the wolf said. 2 omegas fled their duty. The moon does not look kindly on theft. Nor do I, Valerius said, letting his smile show too much fang. You have taken from me without permission many times. My patience is late to wake, but when it does, it arrives hungry. We mean no offense to your house, the wolf said, calling the fortress a house, as if stone walls made men less than beasts. We ask only for what is owed. An Omega's body belongs to the pack. Her vow is not hers to break. The penalty for refusal is death, hers, and half her bloodline. Then it is fortunate for the bloodline that she is no longer yours to judge, Valerius said. As of this dawn I place both sisters under the protection of my crown. Sanctuary is sovereign. Tell your Alpha the moon veil accords cut both ways. You make wives of thieves, the messenger said, like a man tossing a match because he did not understand tinder. Valerius let the insult burn out on the stone. He did not say the thing that wanted to rise, that he had seen the way Ilyra held herself upright in pain, that he had watched Mara share her meager warmth as if it were a crown. He said, instead, "Go home." As the wolf turned, Cassian spoke without looking away. "Your ring." The messenger stiffened. "What of it?" "That signet belonged to law speaker Theron," Cassian said, voice clean as steel. "He was declared missing a fortnight past." A hiss rolled the length of the hall. Authority shifted. The messenger's bravado drained. He bowed lower, because even fools knew when their necks were a breath from opening. "As you say, Knight Crowned." When the doors had swallowed him, Valerius stood alone beneath the banners, and listened to the old stone murmur. He had bought time. He had not bought peace. By dusk, the fortress was alive with tension. Scouts reported that the pack had tripled its numbers along the border. Every torch outside was mirrored by one inside. Every shadow on the snow was mirrored by the one in Valerius's mind. He found Ilyra and Mara in the library, two small figures wrapped in candlelight and parchment. Mara was reading aloud from a faded book of songs, her voice low and rough but steady. Ilyra sat beside her, mending a tear in her sister's sleeve. "It's begun, hasn't it?" Ilyra asked when she saw his face. "Yes," Valerius said. "They're massing at the ridge." Mara closed the book gently. "We'll go," she said, "if it spares blood." "No," he said at once. "You won't. You can't fight an entire pack for us," she said. "You're a king. You have people to protect." "I am protecting them," he said, stepping closer. "If I let them take you, the reformed sanctuary edicts die tonight. Every hearth becomes a hunting ground. Every tyrant who thinks power means ownership is a threat to all of us." Mara's eyes softened. "You don't even know us." "I know enough," he said. "I know what it means to be used by law. To be told your life was promised before you learned to breathe." Ilyra looked up at him with something like awe and fear. "You would make enemies of the packs for two souls you just met?" "Yes," Valerius said. "Because once, no one did it for me." That silenced them both. The fire cracked. Thunder rolled across the mountains. "Then we'll fight with you," Ilyra said at last. "You can barely hold a blade," he said. "Then teach us, or let us use what we have." "And what's that?" "A voice that can stop hearts," she said. "And one that can start them again," Mara added. He could not help the small curve of his mouth. "You're impossible." "Good," Ilyra said. "So are you." They did not train with steel. He showed them where to stand when fear came, how to breathe through panic, how to use the sound of their hearts as compass instead of drum of doom. At one point he stood behind Ilyra, guiding her stance with a hand on her shoulder. Her hair smelled of pine and smoke. His touch was meant to be correction, but when she leaned back slightly, just enough for his breath to graze her neck, he froze. "Still think you're not a monster," she whispered. "I'm still deciding," he murmured. "Then decide faster," she said, voice trembling but defiant. "Because I already have." He turned her slowly, like it hurt to do it, and looked into her eyes. Whatever restraint had kept them apart cracked. The kiss that followed wasn't sweet. It was raw and desperate, the kind that feels like it's been waiting across lifetimes. Mara didn't look away. There was no jealousy in her gaze, only something older, like understanding. When Valerius finally broke away, breath ragged, he saw it in her expression. "What?" he asked. "The fates never send one heart when two are needed," she said. The horn sounded from the walls, long and low, the sound of a siege beginning. The pack had arrived. This time, they weren't coming to talk. Night settled thick and silver over the fortress, the kind of silence that carried meaning, the kind before oaths were made or broken. Valerius sat by the dying fire, ink-stained fingers resting on the edge of a parchment he hadn't written on. He was supposed to draft orders for the battlements, but every word tried to begin with Ilyra and end with Mara. 2 sisters. 2 mirrors. One carried the light that hurt to look at, the other, the shadow that made it bearable. The door opened without sound. Ilyra entered first, her hair loose, her feet bare on the rug. Mara followed, softer but heavier somehow, like dusk after a long day. "You're still awake," Ilyra said. "So are you," he replied. "You're writing battle plans?" Mara asked. "Trying to," he said. "Words don't obey kings, they obey truth." "And what truth are you avoiding?" Ilyra asked. "That you're lonely," Mara said before he could answer. "Even surrounded by a kingdom, you sit with ghosts." "I buried most of them myself," he said quietly. "Some still follow." "And yet, you saved us," Ilyra said. "You could have left us to the snow." "I almost did," he admitted. "Until one of you opened your eyes and spoke as if you were not dying. I thought, here is a creature who argues with death itself." "She's always been that way," Mara said. "I follow the storm she starts. Someone has to make sure she isn't swallowed by it." "You share the same blood," he said, "but you burn differently." "Does that frighten you?" Ilyra asked. "No," he said. "It tempts me." They sat together until the walls stopped feeling like walls. They found wine in the kitchens and brought it without asking, 2 cups between 3. Ilyra poured first, offering him a share with eyes that dared him to refuse. He didn't. "You've known each other one day," Mara said, amused. "And yet you look like you've been arguing for years." "Perhaps we have," he said. "Some souls meet on every turn of the wheel and keep finding new ways to test each other." "You believe in that?" Ilyra asked. "In repetition," he said. "In promises that don't end even when the body does." "Then, maybe that's why you found us," Mara said. "Maybe we've been waiting." Ilyra stood before him, close enough that her shadow touched his knees. "If both of us wanted you, what would you do?" "I would ask which truly does and which thinks she must," he said. "You'd make us choose?" Mara asked. "No. I would make sure you were free to." "You don't understand our kind," Ilyra said gently. "We don't separate easily. What one feels, the other echoes. We are taught to hunt together, heal together, want together. It isn't shameful." "I don't think it is," Valerius said. "I only fear what the world will do to you for it." "The world already tried," Mara said. "It failed." She rose and joined her sister. Together they stood before him, 2 halves of the same storm, one light, one shadow, breathing the same defiance. "I could ruin everything," he said softly. "One wrong touch, one promise too deep, and you'd both bear the mark of it." "Maybe we want that," Ilyra said. "Or maybe," Mara added, "you're not the only one who can choose mercy." The candle burned low, the fire dimmed to embers. Ilyra brushed her hand against his, testing. Mara reached and took his other. He could have pulled away. He didn't. The fortress seemed to breathe with them, an old, sentient thing that had seen blood and vows, and was now witnessing something rarer. 3 lives, unbound by duty, drawn together by the gravity of recognition. Valerius looked from one sister to the other, wolf and wolf, warmth and will, and knew the truth he'd been avoiding since the snow. They were not rivals. They were reflection and echo, and somehow, impossibly, both were meant for him. He lifted their joined hands and pressed a kiss to each. A vow without words, binding nothing, promising everything. "If there is a God watching," he said, voice raw, "let him write this down carefully. Whatever comes next, the blood, the siege, the ruin, this moment will not be taken from us." Outside, the wind began to rise, carrying the first distant howl of the Crescent Pack. Inside the fortress, something older than war had already chosen its side. At dawn, bells were rung, banners were draped, summons were carried through snow to pack and coven. The high hall of Concord was opened and scrubbed with salt. No sunlight had ever touched those stones. They were built for night, for oaths under a moon so bright it turned truth to silver. But an old rumor woke and walked the corridors. Once, when love rose higher than law, the hall had admitted a blade of morning. Valerius stood at the center, cloak unfastened, crown abandoned on the dais behind him. To either side were the wolf sisters, one bright, one shadowed, and he felt the pulse of them as clearly as his own. The keeper of Concord struck the floor once with his staff. "King Valerius of the Night Crown, you are summoned to answer the Crescent Pack. You are accused of harboring their omegas and binding them beneath your roof." "Binding is claim," Valerius said calmly. "I offered sanctuary, not chains." "And yet, they stand beside you," the keeper said, eyes on the sisters. "Do you deny his care?" "I deny that he owns us," Ilyra said. "But I do not deny that we have chosen him." "Choice is the truest vow," Mara said. "We stand here by our own feet, not his command." "Two hearts cannot share one bond," a wolf elder growled. "Once they could," Valerius said, "long before your scrolls forgot. Before moon and blood divided, there was a rite, the triune covenant. When three souls recognized one flame, they were bound as equals, not claim. Bond. One circle, 3 points. Eternal." A hush. Some vampires shifted uneasily. Some wolves looked away, remembering fragments their grandmothers sang. Cassian stepped forward, producing a cracked vellum. Page 29 of the second accord. He recited, "Triune covenant, rare, binding, equal, witnessed by a keeper and the moon." The keeper took the vellum, lips thinning. "Such magic is forgotten." "Forgotten," Valerius agreed. "Not forbidden." Procedure. A vampire elder snapped. "A test of precedent. A witness." "I will witness," said an old wolf matron, voice like bark. "My mother's mother saw 3 candles burned as one in this hall and did not go blind." The keeper lowered his gaze. "Proceed." Valerius turned to Ilyra. "You are flame. Will you join your fire to mine, knowing eternity burns slow and deep? I do not drink from the unwilling. In covenant blood is blessing, not hunger. If the years dull your light," Ilyra wanted to say, "I will be the spark that wakes it." She stepped closer instead and let her hand find his. "Yes, and I will wake it." He turned to Mara. "You are the calm after storm. Will you keep us when centuries turn cruel?" "If eternity is a sea," she said, "I will be the shore that lets you rest." Ilyra's thumb pressed to Mara's knuckle. "With me," she whispered. "Always," Mara answered. "Or never at all." The keeper hesitated, staff trembling. "Such a bond has not been witnessed in an age." "Then let this be the first of the new age," Valerius said. "And let the realm hear our vows. 3 vows, 3 freedoms. Each may speak, refuse, be alone, and be together. We come to one bond as equals, not as property." He drew the ceremonial blade, its edge catching moonlight. He cut his palm. The sisters followed, each pressing her hand to his blood, meeting blood until the circle closed. The runes along the pillars flared to life, one by one, until the chamber filled with light that felt like song. The roof's dark glass thinned as if remembering how, and a single blade of dawn fell through and touched their joined hands. The keeper whispered the words no one had spoken for 1,000 years. 3 hearts, 1 soul, 1 flame that does not die. A wolf elder began to object, but the sound faltered under the humming light. Even those who had come to sneer bowed their heads, not in obedience, but in reverence. Balance had entered the room and taken a chair. Valerius kissed Ilyra first, a promise of light. Then Mara, a vow of calm, when both their foreheads rested against his. The bond pulsed once through stone and bone, and even the pillars seemed to sigh. Outside, the siege drums beat the snow. Inside, law bent to love, and found itself improved. They stood in the archway together, the hall breathing dawn it had not known in an age. 3 silhouettes faced the day, fire, shadow, and the man who had learned to be both. Later, people would say the war ended there, softened by a miracle. They would call them the Triad of Eternity, the vampire king who broke blood laws, the wolf sisters who taught immortality to love again. In every age, their story returned, sometimes as a song, sometimes as a rumor carried by snow. In those tellings, a few details shifted, but one thing did not: the way their hands found one another in any darkness. That night, in the quiet after the chamber emptied, Valerius wrote in his ledgers. Not a decree, not a threat. A record of 3 names, and a promise kept. He set down the quill, and listened to their breathing deepen as the fortress settled. He was night-crowned, yes, alpha among vampires, keeper of accords, but what he treasured most was simple: a hearth that would not go cold. 2 hearts that would not let his go empty. If there is a God watching, he thought again. Let him write this down carefully. Whatever comes next, the negotiations, the winter, the years, this will not be taken from us. And now, you who have walked beside them through snow and fire, answer me this. If love offered you eternity not alone but shared, one soul in 3 bodies, so that no heart ever again would stand in the cold, would you accept, trusting flame and shore to keep you whole? Or would you turn away, afraid of a forever that might finally understand you?